She thought she was living the American dream, a fairy tale marriage to one of the most powerful politicians in the country. Cameras followed her, magazines adored her, and millions called her the perfect wife. But behind the glass walls of luxury, Luxe Monae was just another pawn in a game she did not create. Every promise, every smile, every headline was a lie crafted to win an election. And when she discovered the truth, that her marriage was never love, only strategy, the same world that crowned her began to turn against her. Now, standing between silence and survival, she must decide, will she protect his image or destroy his empire? This is not just a story about love. It's a story about power, deception, and the price of ignoring your mother's warning. The night air smelled of champagne and camera flashes. Luxe Monae stood under 1,000 golden lights, the lace of her gown whispering against her skin. Applause filled the ballroom as her husband, Senator Clayton Reeves, raised her hand like a trophy. She smiled. She always did. It was part of the role. The press called her America's Grace. Her face was on billboards, talk shows, and campaign posters. She had the life she used to dream about while scrolling through glossy magazines in her small Georgia apartment. But dreams have a strange scent when they come true, like perfume masking smoke. Every morning, she woke up in silk sheets that smelled faintly of cologne and lies. She watched the sun rise over their glass mansion and wondered when her own reflection had become a stranger. Clayton's voice echoed from the hallway, deep and commanding. He was rehearsing for another speech, another promise to restore trust, rebuild hope. She knew he meant neither. Her job was simple: smile, wave, pretend. But lately, she could feel the cameras even when they were not there, like invisible eyes pressed against her skin. Her followers adored her online. They called her a role model. They envied her perfect life. She gave them curated happiness, one post at a time. Inside, her laughter was rehearsed. Her eyes, tired. Her mother had warned her. Power without peace will poison you, child. She had laughed then. She thought her mother did not understand ambition. One evening, after another gala filled with empty congratulations, Luxe walked alone through the marble hall. Her heels clicked like a metronome. In the distance, voices whispered, low, sharp, male. She stopped. The study door was slightly open. Through the crack, she saw Clayton with his advisors. Papers covered the desk. Her face was on one of them, next to polling numbers. Clayton's voice was calm. Her popularity boosts us 12 points in the South. After the election, we will handle the divorce quietly. A chill ran through her body. The air felt heavier, the walls closer. She wanted to step back, to run, to scream. But her feet stayed still. Through the gap, she saw his hand on another woman's arm, a younger staffer, laughing softly. The taste of champagne turned bitter in her mouth. Outside, the city lights sparkled against the night sky, like a stage that never went dark. Her phone buzzed. A new notification. Another follower commenting, "You are living the dream." She looked at the message, and then at her reflection in the glass. The woman staring back did not look like her anymore. The whispers behind the door grew louder. Her heart pounded like drums at a distant funeral. She took a slow breath. Her fingers tightened around the diamond ring that had once felt like victory. Somewhere deep inside, she knew, this story was just beginning. The next morning, the world outside was drenched in sunlight, but inside Luxe Monae's chest, there was only shadow. She sat by the wide glass window overlooking the Potomac River, coffee untouched, makeup flawless as always. The hum of cameras and reporters still lingered from the night before. Clayton had already left for a press conference. His suits always smelled of ambition and expensive deceit. She stared at the river. It flowed quietly, pretending not to know the stories it carried. Maybe that was how survival worked in Washington, silence disguised as grace. Her phone lit up again. Messages, mentions, hundreds of notifications calling her the perfect wife, the nation's sweetheart, the future first lady. She scrolled until her eyes blurred. Then she saw it, an anonymous message. "You are not the first." Her throat tightened. The message came from an untraceable account. No picture, no name, just those 4 words. For a moment, she felt cold all over. She locked her phone and stared at the reflection in the glass. The woman staring back had diamonds on her wrist and fear in her eyes. Later that day, she dressed for an interview. The team arrived early, stylists, assistants, publicists. The house buzzed with fake laughter and bright lights. "Luxe, you are glowing," her makeup artist said. Luxe smiled mechanically. The woman powdering her face did not notice her hands trembling. The cameras started rolling. The reporter leaned forward with a perfect smile. "Mrs. Reeves, what is it like being married to America's most promising politician?" Luxe looked straight into the lens. She felt the weight of every lie behind that question. "It is an honor," she said softly. Her voice did not shake. She had mastered that art long ago. When the interview ended, she walked out to the garden behind the mansion. Autumn leaves brushed against the marble walkway. The scent of lavender mixed with the faint smell of wet soil. It reminded her of home, of simpler times, of her mother's garden in Georgia. Her mother's last words replayed in her mind. "Luxe, remember, when a man loves your image more than your soul, he will use you like perfume. And when the scent fades, he will throw the bottle away." She had ignored it. Now, every word felt carved into her ribs. That evening, she attended a private fundraising dinner at the National Museum. The chandeliers sparkled like frozen stars. Clayton stood beside her, arm around her waist, smiling for donors. His laughter was effortless, his charm surgical. When their eyes met, hers said nothing. But inside, she was measuring every breath, every exit, every ally in the room. Across the hall, a man approached her quietly. Tall, sharp suit, no smile. He handed her a folded napkin as he passed. She unfolded it discreetly under the table. "You deserve to know what he did to the others. Meet me tomorrow, 9 p.m. Riverside Hotel, room 412. Her pulse thudded so hard she thought someone might hear it. She tucked the note into her clutch and smiled at the camera flashing in front of her. She looked perfect again. Everyone cheered when Clayton raised his glass for a toast. But under the table, Luxe's hand was trembling. At 9 p.m. sharp the next night, she entered the Riverside Hotel through the back elevator. A cap covered her hair. A gray coat replaced her usual luxury dresses. Her heart pounded against her ribs. Room 412 smelled of old wood and coffee. The man from the gala stood by the window. He looked at her with calm eyes, like someone who had already seen too much. "Who are you?" she asked. He handed her a file. Someone who used to believe in him. Inside the file were photos, different women, different smiles, all taken beside the same man. Clayton Reeves. Campaign models, interns, even donors' daughters, the man said quietly. He used them all. Promised influence, positions, fame. When they became inconvenient, he destroyed them. Luxe's fingers tightened on the papers. There were signed documents, confidential agreements, hush money transfers. And then, one photo stopped her heart. Her own image. A copy of her marriage certificate. But underneath her name, faint pencil marks, Strategic Union, boost Southern votes. Her mouth went dry. Her skin felt like it was shrinking around her bones. "He never loved me," she whispered. The man shook his head. "He never loved anyone." Outside, thunder rolled faintly over the city. Rain began tapping against the glass, soft but steady. Luxe stood still, staring at the file. The rain, the reflection of a life that no longer belonged to her. The man spoke again. "There is more. You should decide how much truth the world deserves to hear." She turned to him slowly. Her eyes, once warm, were now sharp, like broken glass glinting under light. "I will not be his silence," she said. The man nodded. "Then you need to be careful. He is powerful, and people like him do not lose quietly." Luxe looked down at her wedding ring. The diamond no longer sparkled. It only reflected the rain. She slipped it off, placed it on the table, and walked to the window. Outside, the city glowed beneath the storm. Somewhere, her husband was giving another speech about loyalty and unity. The crowd would cheer, just like always. She knew that tomorrow, the headlines would still call them the perfect couple. But tonight, for the first time, Luxe Monae was done pretending. The thunder grew louder. Her reflection in the glass looked different now. Less afraid, more alive. Behind her, the man's voice was low. "What are you going to do?" Luxe turned slightly, her eyes fixed on the lightning splitting the sky. "I am going to remind him," she said slowly, "that even the prettiest masks crack when the lights get too hot." The rain blurred the city lights into streaks of gold and gray. Her pulse steadied. Outside, the world still believed in the dream. Inside, she was finally waking up. And somewhere deep in the silence between thunder and breath, a plan was forming. By dawn, Luxe Monae had not slept. The file lay open on her vanity table, surrounded by makeup brushes, campaign pins, and a single glass of untouched water. The city outside was beginning to hum. The early sounds of engines, street sweepers, the faint wail of a siren. Morning light crept through the curtains, brushing across her face like a quiet truth she could no longer avoid. She picked up her phone. Her screen glowed with missed calls. Clayton, his assistant, her publicist. Each one a reminder that her silence would not last forever. Her thumb hovered over the power button. For the first time in years, she turned the phone off. The mansion felt different that morning. Quieter. Almost like it knew something had shifted. Downstairs, the staff moved carefully, avoiding her gaze. Whispers trailed behind her as she walked through the marble hall. Everyone could feel it, the crack in perfection. She went into the study, the same room where she had once overheard her husband plotting her disposal. The curtains were drawn, the scent of his cigar still heavy in the air. She opened the bottom drawer of his desk. It was locked. She used the small hairpin tucked behind her ear. It clicked open in seconds. Inside, documents. Stacks of them. Donor lists. Hidden accounts. Agreements with lobbyists. And among them, letters. She picked one up. It was written in a familiar hand. Delicate. Feminine. A letter from another woman. You said I mattered. You said this would mean something. Why are you ignoring me now? You promised I'd be safe. Her hands trembled as she read it. The signature was smudged, but one line stood out. If anything happens to me, I've told someone what we did. Her pulse quickened. She turned over more papers, photos, contracts, receipts, evidence, enough to burn everything he built. But she also knew, if she used it wrong, it could destroy her too. The sound of the front door opening made her freeze. Footsteps. Confident. Heavy. Clayton. She closed the drawer quietly and slipped the letter into her pocket. When he entered, his face was already polished for public life. That perfect smile, rehearsed over years of deception. There you are, he said, voice smooth as glass. I was worried. You left the gala early last night. She forced a small smile. Just tired, she said. Her tone was calm, controlled. He studied her face. For a moment, she thought he saw through her composure. Then he nodded, walking behind the desk. Press will be here this afternoon, he said, flipping through a folder. They want to do a home feature. Family angle. Humanizes us. Us, she repeated quietly. The word tasted like iron. He looked up. Is there a problem? Her lips parted. For a moment, she wanted to scream everything she had seen, everything she knew. But then she remembered the man's warning. People like him do not lose quietly. She smiled again, soft and convincing. No problem. That night, Lux drove alone to an old neighborhood in southeast D.C., a place where streetlights flickered and the pavement cracked under memory. She parked outside a small brick house with a porch covered in vines. Her mother lived there, the one person she had not visited in months. When the door opened, her mother's eyes filled with surprise and quiet worry. Lux, she whispered. You look thinner. I am fine, Lux said, though her voice broke slightly. She stepped inside. The scent of jasmine tea filled the small living room. A faded family photo still hung above the couch. Her father, smiling before politics had ever entered their lives. Her mother poured tea and waited. Lux sat silently, hands clasped. Then, softly, she began to talk. About the file, the women, the lies. Her mother listened without interrupting. When Lux finally fell silent, her mother spoke with calm sadness. I warned you, she said quietly. But warnings mean nothing to a child chasing lightning. Tears burned in Lux's eyes. I thought I could control it, Mama. I thought I could handle him. Her mother reached across the table, holding her daughter's trembling hands. Then stop handling it, she said. End it. Lux looked at her, startled. I cannot just leave. Everything is tied to him, my contracts, my image, my name. Her mother's gaze was steady. Then start by reclaiming your name. The rest will follow. Outside, thunder murmured again over the city. The storm from the night before had returned. Later that evening, Lux sat in her car outside the hotel again. Room 412's light was on. The man was waiting. When she entered, he handed her a small drive. This has everything, he said. Photos, emails, payment records. If this goes public, his career is over. She held the drive carefully. Its weight felt heavier than gold. What happens to you? She asked. He smiled faintly. I disappear. I already have. Then he was gone. Just like that. The door closed, and she was alone with the truth. She drove back to the mansion, rain streaking across the windshield. Each drop felt like a heartbeat against the glass. When she reached home, the media vans were already outside. Reporters, cameras, flashes. Something had happened. She stepped out of the car, shielding her face. A young journalist rushed forward, voice sharp with urgency. Mrs. Reeves, do you have a statement about the allegations? Her breath caught. What allegations? The reporter showed her a phone screen. Headlines blazed across it. Anonymous whistleblower exposes Senator Reeves' secret scandal. Evidence of affairs and financial fraud leaked to the press. Her hands went cold. She had not leaked it yet. Someone else had. She pushed through the crowd and entered the house. Inside, Clayton was pacing, furious. The calm mask was gone. Did you do this? He shouted. Did you leak it? No, she said quietly. He slammed his fist against the wall. They are calling for an investigation. Do you understand what this means? She watched him, really watched him, for the first time. The man who once made her believe in power. Now trembling, desperate, cornered. Something inside her shifted again. Not fear. Not guilt. Clarity. She walked closer, her voice low but steady. Maybe it means the truth is finally louder than your lies. He turned to her, eyes dark with rage. You would destroy everything for revenge. She shook her head slowly. No, Clayton. You already did. He stared at her, breathing hard, realization dawning that he no longer controlled her. Outside, cameras flashed against the windows like lightning. Inside, silence stretched between them like glass about to break. Luxe stepped back, picked up her bag, and walked toward the door. Clayton's voice followed her. This is not over, Luxe. You think you can just walk away? She paused, looking over her shoulder. Her eyes calm, cold, free. I am not walking away, she said softly. I am walking home. The door closed behind her. Outside, rain poured harder, blurring the world into streaks of silver and shadow. Her car waited at the curb. She sat inside, breathing slowly, the city lights flickering on her face. The drive with the evidence was still in her hand. But now, it was no longer a weapon. It was a key. She started the engine and drove into the storm, the past dissolving in the rearview mirror. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. Power without peace will poison you, child. Now she finally understood. Peace was not given. It was taken back. And somewhere deep within that storm of scandal, fear, and truth, Luxe Monae began writing her own story. But this time, it would not end in silence. The morning after the storm, Washington felt quieter than usual. The headlines still screamed with chaos. Images of Senator Clayton Reeves, his career dissolving under the glare of truth. Networks replayed his fall in slow motion, like a nation watching its reflection crack. Luxe Monae sat by the river again, in the same spot where her story had begun. This time, she was alone. No cameras, no entourage, no one watching her breathe. The air smelled of rain and metal, the scent of endings and beginnings. She held a small cup of coffee in both hands, steam rising into the cool air. For the first time in years, her heartbeat was calm. The scandal had grown like wildfire. Investigations were underway. Old victims had come forward. The truth, once buried under money and charm, now filled every screen. Clayton Reeves had resigned within 48 hours. There were whispers of exile, of divorce papers, of legal charges. The empire of lies had finally devoured itself. And Luxe, she did not celebrate. She simply watched the river, letting the silence wash over her. When the call came from a major news network, she almost ignored it. They wanted an exclusive interview. Her voice, her side, the story of the woman who had stood beside a fallen man. She thought about it for a long time. Then she said yes. The studio lights were softer than she remembered. The host smiled carefully, as if handling something fragile. Millions were watching. Luxe Monae, the host began. You were part of one of the biggest political scandals in recent history. What do you want people to understand about your story? She took a breath, feeling the weight of the question. Her reflection in the teleprompter looked older, wiser, but finally, real. I want people to know, she said slowly. That silence has a cost. When you trade your peace for power, you end up with neither. The host nodded, listening closely. Luxe continued. I spent years being the image of someone else's dream. Every smile, every dress, Every post was a cage disguised as perfection. But power built on deception will always crumble. It is better to be forgotten as yourself than remembered as someone's lie. The room was quiet when she finished. The cameras caught the faint shimmer in her eyes, but no tears fell. She did not want pity. She wanted closure. After the interview, she returned to Georgia, to her mother's home. The air was warm there, filled with the hum of crickets and the scent of jasmine. She stood barefoot in the garden, soil soft beneath her feet. The earth was real here. It did not care about politics, fame, or image. It only knew growth and how to begin again. Her mother watched from the porch, a gentle smile breaking through years of worry. "You came home," she said softly. Lux nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "For good this time." She had no mansion now, no cameras, no title, but she had peace. And peace, she realized, was the one luxury that never needed an audience. Weeks later, a small article appeared online. Luxe Monae launches Foundation for Women's Voices. It was quiet work, funding shelters, legal help, and mentorship programs for women silenced by power. She did not seek attention. She had learned that true influence does not need applause. Sometimes, late at night, she still dreamed of the ballroom lights, the flash of cameras, the perfect smile she once wore like armor. But when she woke, she would listen to the soft rhythm of the rain against her window and remind herself that story was over. Her story, the one she was writing now, had no spotlight, only light. As the sun set over the Georgia fields, Lux walked through her mother's garden one last time that evening. The wind brushed through the trees, whispering like an old friend. She closed her eyes and smiled. "Power without peace will poison you, child." Her mother's voice echoed again in her memory. Now she finally understood what her mother had meant all along. Because Luxe Monae had lost everything. Her fame, her marriage, her illusion. But in that loss, she had found something unbreakable. Herself.